Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down what the first 3 rounds of 2024 fantasy football drafts should look like. We're going to be combining the average draft positions with my current rankings to spit out what I believe is a very good representation of how the first 3 rounds of 2024 fantasy football draft should go. But before we can get on into the video, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. And if you'd like to check out my PPR rankings and cheat sheet, they are available on my Patreon, link in the pinned comment and in the video description for $7.50. So without further ado, let's get into breaking down the first 3 rounds of 2024 fantasy football drafts. So at number 1, to me, in a majority of leagues, the pick is going to be Christian McCaffrey. Now, Christian McCaffrey dealing with an injury is obviously not the most ideal of situations. You would prefer that they wrapped him up in some bubble wrap and that he was fully ready to go for week number 1 and there was no injury going down. But at the end of the day, even with a minor injury, I am still very confident in taking Christian McCaffrey. He is still the best running back in the NFL. This dude scored 100 more PPR points than the second running back last season, and I think it is entirely possible that he could do it again. I get that the offensive line of the 49ers isn't as ideal as you would like, but at the end of the day, that is a team that is going to be scoring a ton of points game in and game out, and they are a team with a great run scheme by Kyle Shanahan. We know that Christian McCaffrey is going to be seeing a bunch of targets game in and game out, and we know how important receptions are at the running back position in half or full PPR. So Christian McCaffrey, to me, despite the potential Madden curse that might be coming like the Grim Reaper for him, I am still selecting Christian McCaffrey at the 101. He is my 101, and based upon ADP, he is also the 101. At number 2, there are 2 guys that you could select here. You could go with either CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill. Now, personally, I have Tyreek Hill ranked ahead of CeeDee Lamb by a smidge, but since ADP heavily points to CeeDee Lamb being the number 2 overall pick, we will discuss him here. Now, the reason why I think a lot of people have CeeDee Lamb ranked ahead of Tyreek Hill, for one, is the age. Tyreek Hill's getting up there, whereas CeeDee Lamb is still a young buck. Now, CeeDee Lamb is dealing with the contract disputes. He posted a picture on Instagram of Peter Parker when it was Tobey Maguire, and he turned all evil. He was wearing the black suit, and he has the venom power inside of him, right? And maybe that's a point towards CeeDee Lamb's getting real angry, and he's going to go fucking nuclear on Jerry Jones, and the only way you could stop him is if you ring a bell. Those old school movies were awesome, by the way. If you guys didn't watch the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans, I remember as a kid, the first time I saw Mary Jane when it was raining, and if you know what I'm saying, you could have seen it was a little bit cold out there. Her nips were piercing the shirt, and when I was like 6 years old, I was like just awestruck looking at that. But goddamn, shout out Mary Jane, but also shout out CeeDee Lamb. I'm not really too worried at all about this contract situation. I think CeeDee Lamb gets it done. I think Jerry Jones, they figure it out. And I think CeeDee Lamb feels very safe as a top 3 pick. At number 3, we got Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was dominant, 50 Shades of Grey style last season, and he's going to do it yet again. The only reason why he wasn't the wide receiver number 1 last season was because he ended up getting hurt. He missed that 1 game, and then once he returned from the leg injury, he didn't necessarily look the same. I think in 2024, we are going to see a healthy dosage of Tyreek Hill game in and game out. And you know he wants to hit all of those incentives that he's got in his contract because he now has like 11 kids like Phillip Rivers. So he needs to hit those incentives. The Dolphins offense is going to be one of the best offenses yet again in the NFL. And I fully expect Tyreek Hill to have yet another huge season. So basically every single draft, these are going to be the top 3 guys. Now, sometimes someone will get a little ambitious and take CD or Tyreek at the 101, but most of the time it's McCaffrey, Lamb, followed by Tyreek Hill, and this is where the door really opens. At the 4th pick, to me, you're deciding between Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, in this, we are going to go ahead and select Bijan Robinson. Now, in some of your home leagues, people won't be as heavy on the running back position because a lot of drafts have shifted now towards being a lot more wide receiver heavy. But at the end of the day, there's still a chance that someone takes Bijan at the 1.4. And I think by the end of August, early September, once everyone's done with their fantasy football drafts, and we look back at aggregate ADP as a whole, Bijan will be the number 4 pick or the number 5 pick, depending on where people have Breece or Bijan ranked. The debate between Tyreek and CeeDee Lamb to me is very similar as it is between Bijan and Breece Hall. You can kind of just pick your poison. These two guys are top 3 running backs in the NFL, in my opinion. The reason why I have Bijan Robinson ranked slightly ahead of him is I just think Bijan's a slightly better back, and I do really believe that the team is going to utilize him the correct way. I understand he absolutely flushed your team down the toilet when you drafted him last season, but I think this year things are going to be a lot different with Coles Cash Kirk under center, with a new offensive coordinator, new head coach. It feels like we are on the right horizon for Bijan Robinson to have a huge year, and I would not be shocked at all if come next year when I'm doing the 2025, how the first 3 rounds should go, if Bijan Robinson is the number 1 overall pick. So we'll make it simple. We'll take Breece Hall right after that. Now, Breece Hall is amazing as well, right? The whole Jets team ended up as a dumpster fire last season. Garrett Wilson at ADP was a big, fat bust, Krakatoa style. But Breece Hall was able to tread water and actually be very reliable game in and game out, despite the fact that the touchdowns weren't there. Now, I fully understand there's reasons to worry about Aaron Rodgers, and maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't return to be his old self, but if he just returns to 70% of his former glory, we saw Breece Hall Eiffel towering defenses with Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian under center, so I believe he'll be able to be even better this year. I think the offensive line is going to be better, and Breece Hall, Bijan, again, you can basically just flip a coin. If you ask me in 3 days, I might be slightly more leaning towards Breece Hall over Bijan because, again, they're that close in my opinion. At number 5, we move to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, I genuinely do believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the safest wide receivers inside of the first round. The Detroit Lions offense loves to feed the rock to Amon-Ra St. Brown. America runs on Duncan. The Lions offense runs on Amon-Ra St. Brown. This dude was slapping defenses up, front hand, backhand last year with his oblique torn off the bone like a nice rib, right? When you get a nice barbecue rib and you shake that thing and it falls right off the bone. His oblique fell off the bone and the dude was still going to Pound Town week in and week out. I believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown has just been so great ever since he really had that breakout towards the end of his rookie season, and ever since then, he hasn't looked back. Jared Goff loves to throw the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown at a very high rate. I know there's been a lot of talk about Jameson Williams, and I love Jameson Williams. I think he's an interesting pick at ADP, but he is not going to stiff arm Amon-Ra St. Brown away from being the number 1 target in this offense. Jared Goff deserves a little bit more credit than people give him, and Amon-Ra St. Brown feels like a very cozy click, like you're chilling in a Snuggie at pick 106, and you can argue to take him at the 104 or at the 105. At number 7, we got Jamar Chase. Now, personally, I would take the guy that we're going to be talking about at pick number 8. I'm just going to throw him on the screen here. Justin Jefferson at pick number 7. Now, in reality, I understand that Joe Shiesty, Joe Burr, Eminem himself, Slim Shiesty is a way better quarterback than Sam Darnold, right? The best thing Sam Darnold's done in his career, his most notorious moment, was getting mononucleosis or mononucleosis. I have no idea how to pronounce it. I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, but that's his claim to fame, seeing ghosts up against the Patriots during a night game, right? Whereas Joe Burrow's claim to fame is claim to fame is smoking that cigar after smoking the Clemson Tigers and touchdown Jesus Trevor Lawrence in the college football national championship, right? Joe Burrow made it all the way to the Super Bowl, this, that, and the other thing. We can glaze Joe Burrow as much as you want. Give him the Hawk Tua, the Gawk 9000 special, the Suka Lamink. But at the end of the day, I still think that Justin Jefferson will outscore Jamar Chase. On paper, is Jamar Chase a little safer? Yeah, but Jamar Chase is dealing with the target competition of T. Higgins, right? He has more target competition, in my opinion, than Justin Jefferson does. And I understand that Jordan Addison's solid, but Jordan Addison isn't on the same level as T. Higgins. And I just really feel like Kevin O'Connell is going to masterfully cook up a good enough of a plan to just feed Justin Jefferson the ball all game long. Justin Jefferson's stats without Kirk Cousins, if you extrapolate it into a 17-game season, he would have been one of the best wide receivers in fantasy football last season. Had he have not gotten hurt, you wouldn't have talked about him as being a bust last season. I still heavily believe in Joe Hendry and Justin Jefferson, so I am going to take him at the 107. Why you might want to take Jamar Chase, though, the safety, the quarterback play, and the fact that Jamar Chase really hasn't had that crazy fantasy football season where he's the wide receiver 1, so maybe he's kind of just destined for it. That might be your thought process there. I don't think Jamar Chase is a bad pick by any means, but I'm definitely taking Justin Jefferson ahead of him. But again, they're very close. I would take Jefferson at 7, Chase at 8. Now we move to pick numero 9. And at 9, this is where we start to have more debate, right? The first 8 picks feel very chalk, right? You basically know how the first 8 picks are going to go. Certainly, you might see a shuffled order from draft to draft, but very normal, the top 8 picks being those guys. Now at number 9, we move to a range where it's a little bit more dicey. Personally, I would take A.J. Brown at 9, but you could be looking at guys like A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Gibbs, Taylor, Saquon, all at those picks. A.J. Brown will be the selection, though, here at 9. I think the fact that Kellen Moore is now their offensive coordinator is going to lead to the offense being a little bit more pass-heavy compared to the past. Now, obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles aren't going to be throwing the ball at an insane clip, right? One of the top 5 passing offenses in the NFL. That'd be crazy to believe, but maybe they get a slight uptick. A.J. Brown is the clear wide receiver 1 in this offense. He's the best red zone threat on their team. And I think that A.J. Brown, another guy that feels relatively safe inside of the top 10. At number 10, we're going to go with Jonathan Taylor. Previously here, we would have taken Gibbs, but the fact that Gibbs is dealing with that injury, I understand that Gibbs is going to be fine by week 1. They're treading cautiously with him. The fact that the hamstring isn't super serious, it's all fine and dandy, but the facts are a fact. The facts are facts. When you get a hamstring injury, it might come creeping up behind you in the middle of the night and strike you again. You don't want to chase injuries down because those injuries are going to find you. So we're going to lean with Jonathan Taylor here. Jonathan Taylor was a guy that to many was considered a bust last season. He has the contract negotiation, the injury entry into the season. He missed the first couple of games. But what I saw with my own eyes last season is that Jonathan Taylor is still that guy. A couple of years ago, everyone was ready to give this guy a Blumpkin, talking about how great of a running back he is. He's going to be the new number 1 running back in the National Football League, the best yet. And then just because of one down season, you want to forget about him. I understand they have Anthony Richardson, who's going to be vulturing touchdowns, this, that, the other thing. But we saw Zach Moss going 11 inches deep into defenses with Anthony Richardson. So you better believe Jonathan Taylor, who is at a much higher level than Zach Moss, will be able to do the same thing, if not better. At number 11, we're going to go with Garrett Wilson. Now, Garrett Wilson was a guy that last season was basically sabotaged by the injury of Aaron Rodgers. Once Aaron Rodgers went down, you basically knew that Garrett Wilson's value was going to plummet. Now, you didn't necessarily think it would plummet as much because maybe Zach Wilson learned a thing or two from Aaron Rodgers, but it turned out Zach Wilson is just a complete and utter garbage can of a quarterback. Now he's like the 3rd string quarterback on the Denver Broncos. Things ain't great for Zach Wilson, but now we got Aaron Rodgers. Again, will Aaron Rodgers look like the back-to-back MVP, the discount double-check State Farm commercial man? Maybe, maybe not. What I do know is one thing, though, and that is that as long as Aaron Rodgers looks halfway decent, Garrett Wilson is an incredible talent. He's been held back by the quarterback play his whole career, and I think with Aaron Rodgers coming back, this is going to sprout Garrett Wilson into being a guy that this season, you might be able to get him in the 2nd round in some leagues, to next year where he is a bona fide 1st round pick. At number 12 to close out the first round, we got Jahmyr Gibbs. Now you can debate here between Gibbs and Barkley, but I'm still leaning with Jahmyr Gibbs here. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to deal with much more competition around him at the running back position, right? When you compare Will Shipley and the other guys with the Eagles compared to Dave Montgomery, with Gibbs, obviously, it does strike a little bit of fear down your spine. But at the end of the day, I think even with Dave Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is such an explosive back. We saw when they tried to believe in him a lot more towards the end of last season, just how great the guy is. I love this Lions offense. Again, I think they could end up being the top offense in the NFL. Jahmyr Gibbs is the kind of guy where you can dump the ball off to him 3 yards away from Jared Goff at their own 1 yard line, and that dude could just zig and zag his way, serpentine his way into the end zone, juking out 3 defenders, running underneath a guy's leg, giving him a fucking, what is that called when you pull someone's underwear up? You know what I'm talking about? A wedgie. Give a guy a wedgie, fucking hit someone with the sweet chin music, and run directly into the end zone. Jahmyr Gibbs is really that guy, and I think with them pushing more towards him this season, it will help. Will Dave Montgomery fully disappear? No. But I think the team's going to push more towards Gibbs. Again, if you wanted to go with Saquon Barkley, though, I would understand it because of the injury. At the 201, the first pick in the 12th round, pick number 13, we're going to go with Saquon Barkley. Now, the tush push is going to be a very annoying for Saquon Barkley, but I do think the tush push might not be as effective without Travis Kelce's brother, Jason Kelce, and I don't know if the team is going to want to do it as much when you have Saquon Barkley. When you compare Saquon Barkley's build to the build of the running backs that were previously on the Eagles, like Miles Sanders, who's basically a fucking midget, or DeAndre Swift, Hasbulla style, when you compare those guys to the build of Saquon Barkley, who's built like a brick shit house, you could see why maybe they want to give more touches to Saquon on the goal line and not risk injuring Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley can catch passes. Is he getting up there in age? Certainly, but he's not fully old yet, so I'm still rocking with Saquon Barkley early in the second round. At number 14, we got Puka Nacua. Now, the second round right now is pretty riddled with injuries, especially if Gibbs falls into the second round. Now, Puka Nacua is dealing with a knee injury and is currently in no threat to miss week 1. Is it promising that he is already hurt? The answer to that would be fuck no, baby. But the fact that it's not super serious, and normally I feel like Sean McVay isn't like a notorious capper, like the guy doesn't just lie all the time straight to your face. So I think Puka Nacua will end up being fine. Now, the fact that all the beat reporters are getting down on their knees and just sucking Cooper Kupp dry isn't super promising for Puka Nacua, but I still think he'll end up being the number 1 target on this team, with Cooper Kupp being close second. Puka Nacua showed us in his rookie year just how great he could be, and there's potential for an even better finish this season, assuming he's able to stay healthy. Now, it's important with Gibbs, Puka, if you're drafting on Labor Day around there next week, then guess what? There's going to be a lot less question marks than there are right now. Everything's pointing positively for both of them, but if it comes out, oh, maybe they're in stranger danger of missing week 1, then maybe you want to serpentine and go elsewhere. At number 15, we're going with Puka's teammate, Kyren Williams. We're just breaking down these injury-prone players. Now, technically, I guess Puka isn't injury-prone just because he suffered 1 injury, but you get my point, right? The fact that Kyren Williams came in banged up, all that, is it worrisome? Yes. The fact that he got hurt, yes, last year was worrisome. The fact that he has a injury-riddled career worries me, yes. But the shout out LA Knight, but the upside is way too big, in my opinion, to miss out on him. This is a guy that could end up as the running back 1. The LA Rams offense, despite the fact that everyone talks up Cooper Kupp, we're talking up Puka Nacua, we're talking up Kyren Williams, Matthew Stafford is buried deep in the undergrounds of fantasy football rankings. Why is that? I don't know. But Matthew Stafford is still a very competent quarterback. Is Kyren Williams going to see the insane workload that he saw last season? In my opinion, no, because they're going to want to preserve him. But I think with less touches comes more efficiency. And while it's going to be annoying a couple of times when Blake Corum comes in like a wrecking ball and vultures him. I don't think they drafted Blake Corum where they drafted him for him to just hold Kyren Williams' jockstrap on the sideline. But I still do think that Kyren Williams is a very high upside pick. And with the second round being kind of dicey this year, it doesn't feel like the second round has a lot of super ultra safe, wrap a condom around your team type of picks. I'm fine with Kyren at the 2.3. Next up, we got Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, when I talk about Marvin Harrison Jr., he is a very polarizing player this season. You are either all in with me, just straight up banging the drum for Marvin Harrison Jr., like you're going to battle up against the Redcoats with Mel Gibson in The Patriot, or you are in the way back. You don't want anything to do with this guy because he's a rookie. You don't believe in Kyler, this, that, and the other thing. I understand Kyler Murray didn't have a great last season, but you have to understand that Kyler Murray was injured entering into the season. He tore his ACL, he tore his meniscus. That impacted his mobility in 2023, and it impacted the fact that he didn't get to play the first 8 games of the season. So Kyler Murray fully healthy going into this season. Maserati Marv being this crazy, sought-upon prospect. Anything you read about Marvin Harrison Jr. is so positive. It is hard to find anyone that says anything bad about Marvin Harrison Jr. Sure, would it be great if he had the height of Shaq while being able to run at the speed of Tyreek Hill? Sure, you can nitpick those things, but he can't magically just change how tall he is, right? Or how fast he is. This is a guy that is able to get open at a very good rate. This is a guy that's the clear number 1 on the Arizona Cardinals. They drafted him highly for a reason. I believe that Kyler Murray is an incredibly competent quarterback who's going to feed him the ball. And I loved what I saw on tape. So I'm just going to believe in the rookie. Maybe it takes a week or two, right? Maybe you're a little bit frustrated early on. But even if that happens, I'm not panicking one bit because I believe in the prospect, I believe in the tape, and I believe that Marvin Harrison Jr. in year number 1 could end up being a top 3 target at the wide receiver position, meaning he is top 3 in terms of targets. Next up, we got Davante Adams. Now, ADP made me put him here, right? Because I don't like Davante Adams. Now, do I think Davante Adams is completely washed? No, I actually think that Davante Adams in a different situation would be a clear first-round pick, right? If you took Davante Adams and took him off this super run-heavy team with Gardner Minshew as the starting quarterback, and you punted him Pat McAfee style to some other offense, right? Maybe he goes to the Jets. He's the number 1 with Aaron Rodgers. Then I would be sitting here fondling his metaphorical Johnson paws, right? I would be all over discussing Davante Adams. But I saw what I saw last season where I really liked Davante Adams. Now, did Davante Adams end up being a super bad pick? No. Shout out Jonah Hill. But what I do think is that Davante Adams isn't going to win you your league. He's going to be fine enough to finish anywhere from wide receiver 16 to 10. And in this range, I don't really just see him being a league winner. I don't see him popping off and being a top 5 receiver. Why? Because the quarterback position is going to hold him back, and because the fact that the offense wants to run the ball so much is going to hold him back. Now, if you draft him here, and do I think you're a complete and utter numbskull? No. I get your decision-making. He's a really great receiver. Maybe he figures things out, but I just don't see Davante Adams beating me at the 2.5, right? If I pass up on him and draft Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, right? Or if I go ahead and draft Drake London, like I just feel like Drake London, while maybe the safety isn't there, he to me probably has more upside than Davante Adams. Next up, we got Travis Etienne. Now, I personally have Travis Etienne ranked a little bit lower, but all of the running backs that we're about to discuss, I have ranked in a very similar range. Now, Travis Etienne, last season, it was kind of a tale of 2 seasons. The first couple of weeks were a little bit suspect, but then he really started to figure things out, and he was really, really hot for fantasy football. He was great for you. 32, 20, 19, 22 points from weeks 5 through 8, and then 4 points, 5 points, 8, 13, 13, 5, 3, 23, and then 8, right? When the team kind of started to fall down, when the team started to fall apart like that Post Malone song, it started to go bad for Etienne, but if the Jaguars are able to stay healthier, Lawrence himself, if the team is a little bit more consistent, Hank Bigsby, the other backups don't really scare me, so I get why someone would take him at the 2.06. Next up, we got Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry is a tough guy to rank, in my opinion, not because I want to rank him very low, because I do like him and I'm a huge fan of Derrick Henry, but we have to call a spade, right? Derrick Henry is getting old. He wasn't as effective last season, but you can make a lot of arguments against that. Hey, the Tennessee Titans were a dumpster fire. They were a terrible team. So now you move him from a bad offense to a great offense, and they're not going to have to take him off the field late in the game because they're going to be able to run the ball late in the game, and you won't be getting Tajay Spears stealing his value. I get it, and I believe in that as well. But what I also understand is that Derrick Henry is at a point where he's so old that maybe the age cliff hits him like a lock in a sock, right? It hits him with the 12-6 elbow, John Jones style. So maybe that ends up happening. But there's so much upside in Baltimore where he could score 20 rushing touchdowns that I'm fine taking him here. But I did like it a couple months ago when you can get him in the third round. At the 2.8, we move to Drizzy Drake London. Now, I was as high as you could possibly be on Drake London last season. I thought that despite the quarterback play, shit was going to be sweet. The guy was great in college, looked solid in the NFL. Again, never really put it together for a bunch of games, but he looked good enough. And then, obviously, we saw Arthur Smith's play calling. The quarterback play, it was just really bad. Now you get Kirk Cousins. Now you get better play calling, and that should be able to elevate Drake London. But still, Drake London doesn't feel like a super safe pick. Again, he is a high upside pick because we've seen the skill. We just haven't seen it at a consistent basis. For me, I do think that Kirk Cousins is going to be able to unlock the upside of Drake London, just like with Bijan, just like with Kyle Pitts. So I'm perfectly confident in taking him inside of the mid to late second round. Obviously, it feels a lot better to get him in the late second compared to in the early second round. Next up, we got Chris Olave, another guy in the same division where there are question marks. And the question mark here is Chris Olave going to get absolutely raw dogged by the quarterback position again, because Chris Olave, just like Drake London, more so like Garrett Wilson, right? These guys that are incredible athletes, incredible wide receivers that are just being suppressed by the quarterback position. Chris Olave doesn't get that upgrade, though. It's not like Garrett Wilson going from Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian now to Rodgers. London going from some absolute fucking bottom of the barrel, bottom rate CFL level, DoorDash driver level quarterbacks. He gets the same shit. Run it back turbo. We get Derek Carr again. Now, Derek Carr looked a little bit better towards the end of last season, but I am still not fully believing in Derek Carr, the check down merchant, to be able to elevate Chris Olave to a good enough of a level. They didn't appear to be on the same page. They weren't even on the same chapter last season. Chris Olave is on the front of the book. Derek Carr's reading the back of the book. Chris Olave would get the ball thrown to him. It would hit him in the back of the head because Derek Carr was trash. Now, do I think that Derek Carr could be slightly better? Yeah. Do I think Chris Olave is so good that he could be able to break free, to soar, to fly like Troy Bolton and Gabriella? Sure. He could, because there's not a star in heaven that we can't reach. But I do really think that I'm starting to panic again. I was panic mode. Then I was like, I chilled out a little bit on Chris Olave. I was like, you know what? He's going to be fine. And now I'm kind of back panicking a little bit. And that's kind of why I see why people are starting to take quarterbacks and tight ends at the end of the second round. After Chris Olave, we're going to go with the tight end. Now, it's basically a coin flip, depending on your league, who goes as the tight end one. ADP a lot of the times says Sam Laporta, but I've been doing money drafts on Underdog Fantasy, and on Underdog Fantasy, like half the time you're seeing Kelsey, half the time you see Laporta going as the tight end one. And even in these mock drafts I've been doing on Fantasy Pros, on Sleeper, for the videos on the channel, sometimes you see Kelsey as the tight end one, sometimes Laporta as the tight end one. You virtually never see, though, someone taking like Mark Andrews or Trey McBride or Cade or something as the tight end number one. We just spoke about Underdog Fantasy, and they're the sponsor of today's video. If you guys don't know what Underdog Fantasy is, they're the best place to do fantasy football best ball contest this summer. If you don't know what best ball is, it's the best part about fantasy football. It's the draft, and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management. At the end of every single week, Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup for you. And Underdog has a great offer for you guys today. If you're new and you click on the link in the video description or use promo code Notorious, you'll receive a deposit bonus of up to $1,000 $1,000. It was $250 a couple days ago. Now it's $1,000 plus a free special pick. Underdog Fantasy's main contest in best ball. $25 to enter, $1.5 million to first place. It's a great way to practice for your 2024 fantasy football draft, so make sure you guys check it out. I draft on there all the time. Underdog Fantasy, promo code Notorious. Now, I got Kelce as my tight end one over Laporta. If you want to argue for Laporta, go right ahead. Laporta scored the touchdowns. Kelce was coming off the injury and wasn't really himself, but then we saw towards the end of last season when Kelce was all good, he was going nuclear on these defenses, looked great in the playoffs. He was dicking down defenses like we are used to. Now I get when you drafted him at pick 6, 7, or 8, sometimes even pick 5, you were disappointed, and I get it. But you kind of have to push that off, brush that off, shed that off, and understand that Kelce is, in my opinion, still the best tight end in the NFL, with the best quarterback in the NFL, throwing him the ball. So don't really overthink things. But if you want to go with Laporta, that's fine with me. At pick 23, we got Josh Allen. Now, I talked about Josh Allen in yesterday's video of guys that I am 100% avoiding. Now, I'm not avoiding Josh Allen because I think that Josh Allen is not good. I'm avoiding him because he loses Stephon Diggs. Curtis Samuel is now hurt. They're relying on Keon Coleman. They have other weapons. They've got Kincaid. Sure. So the weapons core is downgraded. And Josh Allen scored 15 rushing touchdowns last season. Could it be replicated when you're a freak like Josh Allen, when you can barrel through defenders, when you can hurdle over a Vikings defender a couple of years ago? Sure. Could he magically do it? If anyone could, he could, right? But is that the most likely scenario? That he scores 15 rushing touchdowns. Is it most likely that without Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen really is able to become the quarterback 1? Now, could he be the quarterback 3, quarterback 2? Yeah, he easily could. But when you're taking him as the quarterback 1 and he doesn't finish as the quarterback 1, you will be disappointed. Personally, I have Jalen Hurts ranked as my quarterback 2, but I basically see, or as my quarterback 1, and I have Josh Allen as the quarterback 2, but basically in every single draft, I have been seeing Josh Allen or Mahomes as the quarterback number 1. It's never Hurts. It's either Allen or Mahomes at the 2.12 to close out the second round. We got Mr. Isaiah Pacheco, the dude who runs like he's mad at the ground. Now, this range at running back where you're talking about Pacheco, even Henry, ETN, that range at the running back position are pretty much interchangeable. Josh Jacobs, where like if Pacheco went at the 2.6 in your draft, you shouldn't be surprised. If Henry falls to the 3.1, you shouldn't be surprised. If Jacobs goes in that range, you shouldn't be surprised either. To many, they're interchangeable. Now, I have my personal rankings on the Patreon. I like some slightly more than the other. But again, they're all in the same tier. So if for instance, I wanted Pacheco and then I just get stuck with Jacobs. Like, I like Jacobs pretty much just as much, so I would be fine with that. Pacheco did see a huge bump in terms of his pass catching upside towards the end of last season. Once Jerick McKinnon was hurt, Jerick McKinnon now not back on the team. They have other running backs behind Pacheco, but I do really think that they're going to use him a lot more in the pass catching game this year. He's linked to one of the best offenses in the NFL, and he made a lot of strides towards the end of last season, especially with the pass catching, which again is very important. So Pacheco at the 2.12 feels good to me. At pick 25, the first pick in the third round, we're going to go with Sam Laporta. While Sam Laporta's value was definitely boosted by the touchdown number in 2023, I was a huge fan of Laporta before the season even started. I was a huge fan of Laporta coming out of the draft. Once he got drafted, I said, you guys better be hop, skipping, and jumping your way in the draft to get Sam Laporta late. Chef's kiss, man, you freak, shout out me. I'm a fucking genius. Now, Laporta also dealing with a hamstring injury, right? It's just the vibe of today's video. Everyone's fucking hurt that you got to draft. Now, again, just like with the guys we talked about, if you are drafting, say on Labor Day, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, Laporta is still banged up. He might miss week 1, might miss week 2. That's like, okay, back up. Don't take Laporta there. But if he's fine, which is what I would expect, then you can take him at the 3.1. Again, I only got Kelce ranked higher because I feel like Kelce's just on a better offense, and I feel like Kelce's going to get a little bit more lucky with the touchdowns this year, and if Laporta doesn't score as many touchdowns, he'll probably just finish as like the tight end 2 or 3, which is fine, as long as you're not taking him as the tight end number 1. At pick number 26, 6 here, we got Devon Achane, running back of the Miami Dolphins. Now, everyone always makes fun of me. Nick, you're a Dolphins fan. You say Devon Achane. You call him Achane sometimes. How do you actually pronounce his name? It's supposed to be Achane, Nick. And I know it's supposed to be, but I play Madden. And when I play Madden, sometimes they call him Achane. Sometimes they call him Achane. I believe I read that his name's actually Achane, so I'm going to try to call him that. But I forget sometimes. Devon, 2 chains of the Dolphins. Now, Raheem Mostert is not going to disappear. He's not going to go bye-bye. He's not going to Houdini, fairy dust, vanish away, right? That's not going to happen. But Achane is going to be, in my opinion, getting a bigger piece of the pie. In the second year for running backs is normally a very important year for the running back position where they are handed over more of the share of the backfield. Now, is he going to go out there and have a Christian McCaffrey level workload? Fuck no, baby. That would be virtually impossible. But what Achane is going to do is get all of the targets compared to Mostert. I think he is going to be the clear number 1 target in the backfield. He's going to see enough touches. Be great. Now, again, the efficiency heavily carried him last year, but why can't he be similarly as efficient, right? He could be. And again, you want to be drafting players on great offenses. Dolphins are a great offense. Achane has that upside to be a top 3 back, so I'm fine taking him here in the 3rd round. I'd be fine taking him at the end of the 2nd round. After Achane, we move to Patrick Mahomes. Now, this team here gets the old school Chiefs stack. They've got all of Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. Now, Mahomes, personally, my quarterback 3. I'm taking Hurts ahead of him. Why do people like Mahomes the best? Pretty simple. He's the best quarterback in the NFL. He's got Hollywood Brown. I know he's hurt, but Hollywood Brown. He's got Xavier Worthy. He's got Rashee Rice, Travis Kelsey, Pacheco, loaded to the gills. Amazing offense. He's the best quarterback in the NFL. The rushing upside's limited, but he could fuck around and pass for 50 touchdowns, and no one would bat an eye. Feels fine at the 303. Now, again, a lot of the time, I don't love drafting a quarterback super early. I personally just do not. I typically find myself, like in the 5th round, taking AR-15 or waiting for Kyler or Jordan Love. But if you wanted to take a quarterback early, no one's going to slam you for drafting Patrick Mahomes, right? No one's going to make fun of you for that. After Mr. Patrick Mahomes, Kermit the Frog, we got Josh Jacobs. Now, I have been someone that has been really talking up Josh Jacobs all offseason, and it just feels like just recently, people have finally started to realize what I've been saying the whole fucking offseason, ever since the NFL draft, and that has been that Josh Jacobs, I understand, did he live up to expectations last year? No. Sure, he was on a run-heavy team, but they were able to stack the box on every single play because they knew where the ball was going, and that was to Josh Jacobs. I get that based upon ADP, he gave you a big old FU, right? He flashed the 2 middle fingers to you. He wasn't worthy of that pick. Now he's going in the 3rd round. Now he is on the Green Bay Packers, an offense that is going to be laying the smack down, brother, is going to be spearing defenses like Huskar and Dota or like Roman Reigns, right? I really do think that the Packers are going to be so great that even if he doesn't get the lion's share of carries like he would in Viva Las Vegas or the Raiders, I didn't do that good, the Las Vegas Raiders, right? Even if he isn't getting that crazy lion's share of carries, he's going to make up for it with the touchdowns. And plus, A.J. Dillon, Marshawn Lloyd already hurt. Like, these guys can't hold the dude's jock strap. I am all in on Josh Jacobs. After Jacobs, what are we talking about? Both 49ers receivers, and that is Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Now, I will make it very clear that Brandon Ayuk might get traded. He still might. I don't understand how it hasn't happened yet, because I think he's going to be back with the 49ers. Back again? I think so. But there is still a chance that he ends up as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Now, why has this contract negotiation went on for so long? I have no fucking idea. Why hasn't he been traded when everyone was saying he was going to get traded? I have no idea. But what I do know is that it's feeling like, as we get closer and closer to the start of the season, that Brandon Ayuk will end up reaching a deal with the San Francisco 49ers and being the wide receiver number 1 in this offense. Now, you cannot deny the efficiency. He is a more efficient wide receiver than Deebo. Deebo might be a little bit more fun, right? Because he gets the ball at the backfield. He makes these crazy plays. Whereas Ayuk is more of the missionary type of guy, right? Deebo Samuel's in there, reverse cowgirl. He's hitting them with the back shots. He's doing it all, hitting them with the wheelbarrow position. whereas Ayuk's just having a fun time in missionary, staring into her eyes, right? He's having a great time, and he's been playing very well, and he looked great last season. His upside is somewhat capped by the fact that Debo's there, Kittle's there, McCaffrey's there, but on efficiency alone, and I think he's going to be efficient yet again, he feels fine as a third-round pick. If he gets traded to the Steelers, I would personally actually like Ayuk a little bit more than I do right now, because then he moves to be the clear number one target on the team, and there's not going to be games where he's a little bit more silent like the night when Santa Claus comes, because of the fact that the 49ers just has so many playmakers, right? There's jokes where people call them the Avengers, right? The 49ers Avengers. Ayuk last season, 32 points, 7 points, 20 points, 9 points, 11 points, 10, 15, 14, 28, 13, 15, 16, 6, 17, 24, 5.5. So if he just gets slightly more consistent in San Francisco, he's going to be good. He's traded to Pittsburgh. Actually, I kind of want to retract that statement. I think I'd still feel a little bit more comfortable with him on the 49ers, but maybe there's a little bit more upside without Kittle and Debo if he was off the 49ers. Now, Debo picked 3.6. That just kind of feels like where he's going to go. I don't really like Debo. Why? Because I just like Ayuk better, and because I feel like Debo Samuel's kind of just fallen out of favor in the offense, because that one big year he had, that huge year where he was elbow dropping defenses, was because of the rushing upside. And now that rushing upside has been kicked directly in the gonads by Christian McCaffrey. So when you're not getting as much rushing opportunity, when you're playing second fiddle behind Ayuk, and when you have Kittle there, it kind of just makes me feel like Debo Samuel is a high upside play weekly, but with virtually zero consistency. After Debo Samuel, we got Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen Hurts, Allen, and Mahomes are going to be gone by the middle of the third round in a lot of leagues. Now, I talk about this in a lot of my videos, the mock draft ones especially. You guys, there'll be a mock draft later for you guys. But what I talk about is how the quarterback position from league to league varies greatly, right? I feel like I kind of know where the running backs are going to go, where the wide receivers are going to go, but at quarterback, it is so different from league to league. You might be in a league with a bunch of dunces that want to draft Mahomes or Josh Allen inside of the first round or in the early second round. You might be in a league that's been playing for a while, and maybe they aren't as high on the quarterback position. That's what I've kind of noticed with my friends playing fantasy football more in my at-home leagues. The more the quarterbacks tend to fall, the more people are gobbling up the running backs and the wide receivers. So it's very different from league to league, but I would say by this point, even in your more expert type of league, the people that are kind of a little bit more shy on the quarterback position, a little bit more conservative with drafting quarterbacks, by the middle of the third round, like say none of them go in the first or the second round, people are going to start snagging those guys by the middle of the third round. I got Jalen Hurts as my quarterback one because while I think the tush push might be a little bit less effective, they're still going to do it. He's got Devontae Smith, a Jizzle Brown. He's got Goddard, Saquon, and he's one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the NFL. We know how important rushing upside is. People are, I really think you're overthinking things, taking Mahomes and Allen over Jalen Hurts. But again, it's not by like such a crazy margin where I'm going to say like, you're a fucking buffoon if you do that. But I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of think you are a little bit just because of the rushing upside of Jalen Hurts. And I don't think the rushing upside is going to be as taken aback like it would be with Josh Allen this season. At the 3.8, we got Nico Cousin, Let's Go Bowling Collins. Now, Nico Collins is another one of these guys that is incredibly polarizing because there's people like me that like Nico Collins going into last season, that saw how effective he was, efficiency-wise, saw he was the number one receiver, and they're just like, you know what? I think he's going to be the number one receiver again. Then there's the detractors, what about Stephon Diggs? And they start to panic, right? I'm not panicking at all. I think he's the number one receiver on this team. He's the best receiver on this team. He's on an offense that's going to be scoring a lot of points. I think people are really overthinking things. And the fact that you don't have to take him in the second round like you do an underdog, you can get him in the third round, makes him feel a little bit safer. Next up, we got Mike Evans. Now, I'm just going to throw both the next two picks on the screen at once. That's going to be Mike Evans as well as Cooper Kupp. I've continued to rise Cooper Kupp up my rankings. Now, I still fully understand that Puka's probably going to be the 1A, but if something was to happen to Puka Nacua in the season, we're talking about Cooper Kupp as a top 3, top 5 wide receiver every single week. And even as the 1B, he's going to be great. He had a lot of great games last season. Now, they were kind of stifled by the injury, by the ascension of Puka Nacua, but with a fully healthy version of Cooper Kupp in an offense with Matthew Stafford, fully healthy, with Sean McVay calling the plays, it's a recipe for success. Mike Evans, you can lean with him higher than him, though. I'm fine with that as well. Mike Evans is the number one receiver on the Bucs. This dude has gotten 10 straight seasons every single year in the NFL of over 1,000 yards. Half of his seasons, he has scored 12 or more touchdowns. This is a guy that's incredibly safe with big upside. I read a report that yesterday in practice, Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans were laying it down to the defense. They were dominant in the red zone. Evans has been dominant in the red zone his whole career. He's put up numbers with Jameis, with the GOAT, Tom Brady. He's put up numbers with Baker Mayfield, and he's going to be able to do it again. At the 3.11, we got Mike Evans' teammate, and that is Rachaad with 2 A's White. Now, I am strongly in the boat that believes more in James Cook and in Joe Mixon compared to Rachaad White. So I'm not really ever going to be taking Rachaad White in the 3rd round. The guy was very ineffective last season. He gets a better offensive line this year, though, and the team should still be pretty decent, but the loss of their offensive coordinator, who is now the head coach of the Panthers, could be a decent enough of a hit for Rachaad White to make him not worthy of the 3rd rounder. So I'd definitely lean with James Cook, but I don't hate Rachaad White by any means. I would just rather have James Cook or Joe Mixon. At the 3.12, we're going to put Michael Pittman. Now, personally, I disagree with this ranking. I don't want Michael Pittman in the top 3 rounds. And this is coming from a guy that told everyone and their mother to draft Michael Pittman last year and who was correct. But what I will tell you is that Michael Pittman kind of just feels like the volume pick, right? You're going to pick him because he gets a lot of targets, but he's not the most effective with the targets. And we all know Anthony Richardson kind of suspect in terms of the passing accuracy, right? He's got the cannon strapped to his arm. He could hit you from deep, but it's kind of a little worrisome. So for me, I'd rather go with DJ Moore or with Malik Neighbors even potentially as well over Michael Pittman. Again, I don't hate Michael Pittman because I think he's a good player, but the quarterback position there does kind of sway me. I like Jalen Waddle better than him. Again, does that mean that I think that he's a terrible pick at the end of the 3rd round? No, but I'm just probably not going to be taking him there a bunch. And again, he's ranked so high because of how he produced last season. I love Michael Pittman Jr., so I hope he has another big season. But again, I'm just talking about the upsides, the downsides of a lot of these players, and that's just kind of where I sit on Michael Pittman Jr. Pause. So let me know what you guys thought about today's video in the comment section. Was it great? Was it bad? Do you hate me? I mean, if you watched for however long this is, 40 plus minutes, you probably love me at this, right? If I sat and watched anyone for 40 minutes, I have to like them. I can't just hate watch something for 40 minutes. So I love you guys genuinely from deep down the bottom of my heart. Yesterday, we surpassed 6.5 million views, which is crazy. That's an insane number. I get there's guys like PewDiePie with 7 gazillion views. There's Mr. Beast with 8 gazillion views, right? But at the end of the day, I'm very happy with this, and I really do appreciate all you guys. I love you guys all so much. I'll continue to say that. You guys mean the world to me. Check out the sponsor, Underdog, link in the video description. If you want my rankings, patreon.com/I think NotoriousFantasy, link in the video description. Love you guys all so much. Check out one of the videos if you haven't subscribed already. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Have a great one. As always, bye.